Evelyn Hart balanced 2 bags of groceries on her hip and nudged the kitchen door open with her shoulder. The winter light on Bayberry Street was thin and watery, the kind that made every surface look like a memory. Inside, the house smelled faintly of coffee and fresh paint, the paint she had paid for after Lucas said the old beige made him feel stuck. From the sunroom came her son's voice, low and clipped. "I'm tired of this, Evelyn," Lucas said. He didn't look up from his phone. "Paige feels it too. We need space. You should find somewhere else." The word, Evelyn, landed with more weight than the grocery bags. She watched the apple roll from a sack and wobble toward the baseboard. "Somewhere else," she repeated, as if practicing a foreign phrase. Paige hovered in the doorway, arms crossed, mouth set in a pretty, nervous line. "It's not personal," Paige added. "We just can't build a life with your presence always around." Evelyn set the bags on the counter and straightened, smoothing the front of her coat. "This house exists because I wanted you to have a beginning you didn't have to mortgage," she said quietly. "I signed the deed. I moved into the little room over the garage. I made myself small so you two could feel big." Lucas finally met her eyes. There was something hard there, fear made rigid. "It was never supposed to be forever," he said. "You said you'd transition out." "I said I'd help you transition in," Evelyn replied. She heard how calm she sounded and was grateful for it. Rage could take everything. Calm lets you choose. Paige shifted. "I've tried, I really have. But I'm always tense in my own kitchen. I keep worrying I'll do something wrong, and you'll look at me." "I look at you because you are here," Evelyn said. "Because I asked to love what my son loves." She turned to the sink, ran water, washed her hands as if the chill on her skin might rinse the conversation away. In the reflection of the window, she saw the silver streaks in her hair like threads of weather. "All right," she said, and dried her hands. "If that's what you want." Lucas blinked, startled by the ease. "So you'll go?" "I'll go," Evelyn said. She gathered the bags, carried them down the narrow hall to the small room above the garage where her life fit into neat stacks. A sewing machine, a cedar chest, a file box with old tax returns, and the deed whose edges she had reinforced with tape the day she signed it. When she had given Lucas the keys last spring, he had hugged her and whispered, "You'll always have a place here." She had believed him. Belief, she was discovering, was a kind of debt with bad interest. She sat on the bed and dialed Val. Val Palmer answered on the second ring, all breath and warmth. "Tell me you're calling to say you bought the red coat." "I'm calling to say my son asked me to leave the house I bought," Evelyn said. "By the end of the week would be convenient." There was a pause. Then Val's voice came back like flint. "Then we make it inconvenient for him to keep it. You own it free and clear, right?" "In my name," Evelyn said. "I made it simple, so their start would be simple." "Good," Val said. "Pack tonight. Tomorrow we call a broker who sells to cash buyers. Quiet listing, fast close. No warfare, just paperwork." "Lucas will fight," Evelyn murmured. "Let him." "The law can't move as fast as a wire transfer," Val said. "You don't argue with people who show you they're willing to erase you. You move the board." Evelyn held the phone between shoulder and cheek and opened the file box. The deed was where it always was, front, center, a paper spine. Her husband's death certificate. Insurance statements. The notation she had written in tiny script the day she wired the down payment, for him to start without fear. She ran her finger over the words until her hand steadied. "Tomorrow morning," she told Val. "I'll be ready." That night the house made different noises. A cupboard closing somewhere. Paige's laughter when Lucas mumbled a joke, the heater turning on with a cough. Evelyn lay awake and thought about the first apartment she'd rented at 22. How the radiator hissed like a cat and the windows rattled with every bus that rumbled by. She'd been brave then without knowing it. She had been broke and hopeful and hungry for something she couldn't name. Now she was older and had names for everything, even loss. She got up before dawn and began to fold her life into boxes. By noon, she had labeled what mattered and set aside what didn't. The wedding china Lucas and Paige never used. The quilts Evelyn's mother had pieced during long winters. In the kitchen, she paused at the refrigerator where a grocery list, Paige's tidy handwriting, was held by a pineapple magnet. Oat milk, basil, lemons. Ordinary things, unaccused. She took a lemon. She cut it cleanly in half and squeezed both halves into a glass. It tasted like a decision. When the doorbell rang at 2, Evelyn wiped her hands and went to open it. A man in a camel coat stood on the porch, portfolio under his arm, eyes keen. "Miss Hart?" "Armand Reyes," he said. "Val said you prefer efficiency to drama. We are fluent." Evelyn stepped aside and let the winter light follow him in. Armand didn't waste syllables. He spread documents on the dining table and spoke in lean sentences. "Deed is clean, title is clean, tax is current. You are the sole owner. I can place a whisper listing tonight and have 2 to 3 cash buyers in by morning. They know what quiet means." "Quiet," Evelyn repeated. It sounded like air returning to a room. He glanced down the hall. "And the occupants?" "My son and his wife," Evelyn said. "They believe proximity is ownership." Armand's mouth barely shifted. "We will speak in contracts, not beliefs." He tapped a page. "Offer window, 48 hours. Inspection waived. As is. Proof of funds required up front. 5% earnest money wired within 2 hours of signed acceptance. Close in 5 business days. You move on your own timeline, but the title transfers on mine." Val, who had arrived smelling like peppermint and certainty, leaned back in her chair. "She'll need a new account for proceeds, away from any joint or known bank. We don't want an oops lien popping up at the last minute." "I can set that up this afternoon," Armand said. "A trust account at a private bank. Wire instructions routed through counsel. We'll also file a notice with the county to block any surprise encumbrances in the interim." Evelyn thought of the apple rolling toward the baseboard and felt an odd sympathy for its gentle persistence. "What about them trying to stop it?" she asked. "Saying they live here, so they have rights?" Armand folded his hands. "They're tenants at will without a lease. The owner may sell. After closing, the new owner can decide occupancy. We can negotiate a short, written license for you alone if you want an extra week to move, no one else." Val's phone buzzed. She glanced, frowned. "You're going to love this," she said to Evelyn. "A friendly reminder from Lucas. He wants to finalize the refinancing paperwork this weekend. He says you forgot to sign one page." Evelyn's stomach went tight. "What refinancing?" Armand's eyes sharpened. "May I see?" Val slid her phone across. Armand scanned the text, then looked up. "Classic. He's been trying to place a lien without your knowledge. They probably prepared a bogus power of attorney, or planned to." He opened his portfolio, pulled out a business card. "Call attorney Carla Benton. Tell her I sent you. She'll file a preemptive affidavit of non-consent with the recorder's office and alert the fraud desk at 3 banks. If anyone waives paper with your name, it dies on contact." Evelyn drew a breath that felt like picking up a weight she could carry. "Do it," she said, "and list the house." By 8 that night, a quiet line had been cast into a very small pond, and by 9 the next morning, 3 buyers had circled. The first arrived in a navy-down jacket, a woman with eyes like slate and questions like scalpel blades. The second, a couple who smelled of espresso and saw the bones of the place in a way that made Evelyn briefly grateful for strangers. The third was a developer who asked about setbacks and zoning as if people were an afterthought. Evelyn walked them through every room with the detached warmth of a docent. "This window faces east. Light pours in by 9. The hardwood is original. The door sticks here if you slam it. Don't slam it." In the primary bedroom, Paige had left a silk scarf draped over the footboard, as if to mark territory. Evelyn folded it neatly and set it on a chair without commentary. Lucas stayed out of sight until the second showing, then materialized in the hall, jaw tight. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "Selling my house," Evelyn said. "You asked for space." He held her gaze, as if trying to stare her decision into submission. "You can't just, this is my home." "It was your beginning," she said. "You mistook it for an entitlement." That afternoon, the slate-eyed woman wired earnest money and sent proof of funds so robust it made Evelyn dizzy. No inspection. 5-day close. "I want it," the woman told Armand. Then to Evelyn, "I'll treat the bones well." By evening, the contract sat before Evelyn like a dare. She read every paragraph twice, tracing the lines with a pen as if she could sew them into something that wouldn't unravel. She signed, dated, and initialed with the same hand that had once filled out permission slips and mortgage applications and sympathy cards. Armand gathered the papers like a magician concluding a trick and slid a single copy back to her. Wire at close. 10 a.m. 5 business days from today, he said. Your new account will be ready by noon. Val squeezed Evelyn's shoulder. Breathe. Evelyn did. The air tasted of winter and lemon and ink. That night, she cooked for one in a kitchen where she had often cooked for three. She ate standing up, listening to the house soften around her. At 10, there was a knock. Paige stood on the other side of the door, cheeks flushed, a tremor in her mouth. Can you watch Sarah on Saturday? She asked. We have plans. No, Evelyn said gently. I'm busy. Paige blinked. Busy with what? With leaving, Evelyn said. She closed the door softly. At dawn, an email landed with the subject line, Urgent Illegal Sale. The sender was a downtown law firm Evelyn didn't recognize. The message claimed Lucas was a permanent resident with equitable rights in the marital home, and that any transfer without his consent was null and void. It was full of words that tried to be heavy. Armand forwarded it to Carla Benton with a single sentence, Please educate them. Carla replied within 10 minutes, attaching the recorded deed, the title report, and the affidavit of non-consent stamped by the county. They have no standing. Proceed. Evelyn printed Carla's email and tucked it into her file box like a talisman. 2 days later, Mr. Dwyer from a local bank called. Miss Hart? We've been presented with a power of attorney granting Michael Hart authority to act on your behalf for a cash-out line secured by your property. Routine verification. Did you sign this? I did not, Evelyn said. And I never will. Thank you, he said crisply. We'll note fraud and lock the file. She ended the call and stared out at the maple tree by the curb. Its branches were bare and confident, unashamed of their bareness. She envied that. On the fourth morning, uniformed officers arrived with a search warrant bearing Evelyn's address and her son's complaint of elder exploitation. The lead officer, thin, tired, kind, read the header, looked at Evelyn, then at the framed deed she'd set on the hallway table like art. Ma'am, he said, lowering his voice, we have to look. But I suspect this will be quick. Take your time, Evelyn said. You'll find a woman who pays her own bills. They found no crime, only order. Lucas fumed in the driveway, arms slicing the air. Paige kept her eyes on the ground. When the officers left, Evelyn placed a copy of the signed purchase and sale agreement on the kitchen island and tapped the date with one finger. 3 days, she said. Then I hand over the keys. Paige's voice cracked. Where are we supposed to go? To a life you make on your own. Lucas's phone chimed. He glanced at it, face tightening. You'll regret this, he muttered. I already did, Evelyn said, when I chose to stay small to make you feel tall. She returned to her room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands were steady. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked like a metronome for courage. On closing day, snow flirted with the air and then changed its mind. Evelyn wore her good wool and the small pearl studs she saved for occasions that asked for quiet dignity. In Carla Bennon's conference room, a notary slid documents across the table with the reverence of ritual. Deed, affidavit, settlement statement. The slate-eyed buyer signed with measured care, as if each stroke was of promise. Congratulations, Carla said. Funds will hit your new account in about 90 minutes. We routed through the trust sub-account as discussed. If anyone attempts a last-minute encumbrance, it will bounce. Evelyn nodded. Thank you for making the law sound like a door that can close. It can, Carla said. And today it did. Outside, Val looped an arm through Evelyn's. Coffee, then suitcases. They stopped for pastries, and for 10 minutes Evelyn allowed her mind to go blessedly blank. Sugar, heat, people who didn't know her story. By the time they reached the house, a moving crew idled at the curb, men in gray shirts rolling dollies down the walk. Lucas was on the porch, cheeks wind-burned, eyes frantic. Beside him, Paige had a box clutched to her chest, Evelyn's grandmother's teapot peeking through bubble wrap. Put that back, Evelyn said evenly. Heirlooms are going with me. It's part of the house, Paige snapped. It's part of my life, Evelyn replied, and nodded at the crew chief, who gently took the box from Paige and handed it to Evelyn with professional neutrality. A black SUV slid to the curb. A woman in a navy suit stepped out and thrust papers toward Evelyn. "Temporary restraining order," she said. "Transfer of property enjoined pending further proceedings. My clients assert a constructive interest." Evelyn took the stack, flipped the first page. Her name was misspelled. The parcel number referenced the wrong subdivision. She felt a cool, almost clinical satisfaction. "Val," she said. "Call Carla." 10 minutes later, Carla's paralegal strode up the walk with a stamped order vacating the TRO. "Judge reviewed and dissolved," she said, handing the paper to the navy suit. "Wrong party, wrong parcel, wrong law." The attorney's mouth thinned. Paige looked like she might cry. Lucas looked like a boy who had run into the edge of the world. At 11:40, Evelyn's phone buzzed with a deposit alert. She didn't smile. She exhaled. The buyer arrived at noon with a locksmith and a gentle nod. "Keys?" the woman asked. Evelyn placed them in the woman's palm. They made a soft, decisive sound. "Please take care of the maple," Evelyn said. "It's braver than it looks." "We will," the woman promised. Lucas stepped forward, voice raw. "You can't just walk away." "I'm not walking away," Evelyn said. "I'm walking toward." In the afternoon, a detective named Miller came by in response to a complaint of theft of personal property. He listened while Evelyn produced receipts, photos, and a neat spreadsheet Val had insisted she create. He was kind in the quiet way of people who have seen too much drama to be impressed by it. "You've been thorough," he said. "Complaints unfounded. I'll note that." "Detective," Evelyn said, "if someone attempted to open credit in my name yesterday, would you know?" He studied her. "You got a ping?" "My attorney did," Evelyn said. "A merchant bank flagged a bogus POA attached to an application." He nodded. "We'll add attempted identity theft to the report and loop in the financial crimes unit. Freeze every bureau. Consider a password with your bank that exists only in your mouth." "Done," Evelyn said. That evening the house was no longer hers. The buyer's furniture sat in the living room in tidy stacks, smelling like orange oil and new beginnings. Val drove Evelyn to a small, high-windowed apartment on the other side of town, the kind of place where light fell into the room like a guest. The first night, Evelyn ate soup from a bright blue bowl and wrote her name on an index card she taped inside the front door, E. Hart. She slept with the window cracked, listening to a city she didn't know yet. Somewhere a train murmured. Somewhere someone laughed. The absence of footsteps on the old staircase was not loneliness, it was relief finding its pitch. On Saturday morning, 2 officers and a social worker knocked on her apartment door. "We received a report about financial exploitation," the social worker said gently. "We have to follow up." Evelyn invited them in. She made tea. She opened the file box on the small dining table and laid out the papers in sequence: deed, settlement statement, affidavit, bank letter, police report. She told the story without venom. It didn't need embellishment. Facts had their own gravity. The social worker's eyes softened. "I'm sorry you're going through this," she said finally. "We'll close the case." When they left, Evelyn leaned her forehead against the cool window pane and let herself feel the ache. Not just of what Lucas had said, but of all the almosts. Almost respect, almost kindness, almost family. She let the ache pass through. Then she dressed, laced her boots, and walked to the small park 2 blocks over. The sky was a hard, bright blue. The maples there were bare, too, but a few cardinals insisted on being red anyway. She sat on a bench and wrote in a small notebook Val had tucked into one of her boxes. "I believe near enough was the same as love. It isn't. Love is not proximity, it is posture. Today my posture is standing." Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. We could start over. L. Evelyn stared at it until the letters blurred. She set the phone face down on the bench and listened to the wind trouble the last leaves. A child across the path shrieked with laughter, chasing a paper plane that kept finding a way to fly. "Not today," she murmured, and let the plane go where it wanted. On Monday, the city remembered how to be winter. The wind came off the river with the clean bite of new scissors, trimming sound from the streets. Evelyn took the bus to the private bank Carla had arranged. signed the last of the account papers, and chose a passphrase that only her childhood would know. On the way back, she bought tulips that looked slightly surprised to be alive. She put them in a jar on her small kitchen table and, for the first time in months, brewed coffee without measuring her quiet. By noon, the siege began again. A courier slid a fat envelope under her door. A petition for emergency guardianship, names wrong, dates elastic, allegations written with the soft handwriting of cruelty. It claimed she was increasingly forgetful, that she had been seen wandering, that she was prey to unscrupulous salespeople. It came with an affidavit signed by a clinician she had never met. Evelyn felt a heat climb her neck, then leave, like a blush that had changed its mind. She called Button Carla's assistant, who answered on the second ring. "Don't worry," the woman said, brisk and kind. "They're playing checkers, we're playing chess." 2 hours later, Evelyn sat in a quiet clinic while a geriatrician named Dr. Albright asked her to draw a clock, remember 4 words, and tell him about her day. "You're irritatingly lucid, Miss Hart," he said with a smile, signing a capacity letter whose language had the metallic shine of certainty. "Some families try to parent their parents. You, thankfully, do not require a parent." When she stepped back into the cold, her phone buzzed with a message from Val. "Heads up. Lucas posted a long, vague essay about abandonment and being cut off. Comments are what comments are. Don't read them. Come to my place. Soup." Evelyn didn't go. Not out of pride, but out of practice. She had started learning what her own company sounded like. In the late afternoon, she spread out cardboard on the living room floor and unpacked her grandmother's quilts, letting each one breathe a little winter air. She mended a loosened seam with tiny stitches that felt like prayer. At dusk, the building intercom crackled. A voice, thin, strained, poured up the wire. "Mom? Open. Please. Lucas." Evelyn pressed the talk button. "The lobby has chairs and you have a phone. If you want to talk, we can make an appointment tomorrow with Carla present." Something hit metal downstairs, his hand against the mailboxes, maybe. "You had no right," he said, voice a hiss now. "Paige is a wreck. Sarah cries for you. What did you think you were doing?" Evelyn closed her eyes for a heartbeat at the sound of her granddaughter's name. When she spoke, it was gently but with edges. "I thought I was stopping a kind of weather. You asked me to leave the house I bought, so you could breathe. I took you at your word." Silence. Then a quieter. "Paige sent the guardianship thing. Her cousin knows a guy. I signed because she said he stopped. Can we just talk? Without lawyers." "Not tonight," Evelyn said. "Boundaries are better than apologies." She lifted her finger from the button and let the intercom go silent. A minute later, the building door thudded, and footsteps retreated into the old winter light. The next morning, Detective Miller called. Financial Crimes Unit flagged an attempted line of credit and a forged power of attorney. "Just as you suspected," he said. "We've opened a file. If you receive any more documents, route them to us and your attorney. Also, we pulled a related complaint. Someone tried to report you for elder abuse against yourself. We closed it." "I'm sorry for the paperwork," Evelyn said, only half joking. He chuckled. "Paper's my natural habitat." A pause. "Look, families go strange when money talks. Call if anything smells off. We're not therapists, but we know the scent." Evelyn thanked him, hung up, and turned the tulips a quarter inch toward the light. At noon, Paige called from a number Evelyn didn't recognize. "You're destroying everything," Paige said without greeting. Her voice crackled with a brittle kind of grief. "Lucas can't sleep. Sarah keeps asking why Nana doesn't come. Do you enjoy being cruel?" "I enjoy being safe," Evelyn said. "I won't discuss legal matters on the phone. If you and Lucas want to meet with Carla and an independent mediator, we can." "You sound like a stranger," Paige said. "I am becoming one," Evelyn replied softly, "to the version of me that made you comfortable." That evening, another envelope arrived, a motion for a temporary restraining order to prevent distribution of marital assets. Carla texted a photo of the stamped denial 10 minutes later. "Judge, no marriage between parties. No joint tenancy. Motion frivolous. See you tomorrow for coffee to celebrate not being insane." Evelyn laughed aloud. The sound surprised her. large and round, not the tidy little chuckles she used to offer at family dinners as lubricant. She washed her one wine glass, folded her mending, and opened a new notebook. On the first page, she wrote, "They are not evicting me. I am moving." On the second, "I am not unmothering. I am unshrinking." 2 days later, Paige appeared at the door of Evelyn's building with Sarah bundled like a small planet in her parka. "She misses you," Paige said, defensive and pleading at once. "Please, just an hour." Evelyn stepped into the hall and crouched to Sarah's level. "Hi, my brave bird," she said. "I can't have visitors right now. But Thursday 4 o'clock, the bakery on Larch. Cocoa, extra marshmallows. Your dad will bring you. Deal?" Sarah nodded solemnly, as if swearing an oath. Paige's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. As they turned to go, Sarah looked back and lifted her mitten in a tiny wave, which felt both like an ache and an absolution. That night, snow finally committed. The city grew quiet in the faithful way of places that know how to wait. Evelyn made soup from bones she'd saved and wrote Val a simple text, "I'm okay. The siege is just noise. The house is gone, the weather is changing." Val replied with a heart and 3 bowl of noodle emojis. Sometimes love is ridiculous on purpose. The bakery on Larch had fogged windows and the kind of chairs that remembered 1,000 short stories. When Lucas arrived with Sarah on Thursday, he looked smaller in his coat than he had in anger. He bought cocoa and a coffee he didn't drink. Sarah narrated the week like a newscaster, art class, a boy named Theo who ate paste, the unfairness of mittens that made zippers impossible. After the second marshmallow, Lucas cleared his throat. "Paige is staying with her sister," he said without preface. "She says she needs space to think. We're thinking separately." Evelyn stirred her tea. "Space can be holy," she said. "It lets words arrive without shouting." He looked at his hands. "I'm sorry," he said finally, the words a little astonished at themselves. "Not just for the house, for forgetting you're a person. I turned you into a solution, then a problem. Not you." Evelyn watched Sarah marshal sprinkles into topographical features. "When your father left," she said, "I learned that grief speaks every language. Some of them sound like demands. Some sound like plans. It's still grief." She let the truth sit between them like a third cup. "I won't be moving back into any life where my dignity is a line item. But I will be in Sarah's life, and in yours, if you choose me as a person, not a purse." He winced. "I deserve that." "I'm not aiming," she said. "I'm describing." The meeting with the mediator the following week felt oddly like buying a house, except the currency was boundaries. There were 4 chairs, 2 carafes of water, and a woman in a pale blazer who could have been a violin, slender, tuned, capable of making simple things sing. Carla was present, a piece of calm furniture. Lucas attended alone. "I will not loan money," Evelyn began, reading from a card, "and I will not discuss my finances with either of you. I will not sign anything on the spot. I will not be insulted in my own home. I will see Sarah every Thursday at 4 and alternate Sundays for dinner. If you need a sitter and I am available, I'll say yes. If I'm not, I'll say no. That word will not be an injury." Lucas nodded after each sentence as if putting away groceries, labeled with a language he was only now learning. He took out his own card and stammered a little, then found a rhythm. "I will not bring legal forms to family time," he read. "I will not ask for passwords. I will not sign your name to anything, ever. I will not let anyone else sign your name. I will tell Paige we are done with tactics." "Tactics are what children do when they fear they're powerless," the mediator said mildly. "Adults make agreements. You're making one." After, in the hall, Lucas touched the wall with his fingertips like a blind man greeting a familiar door. "Mom," he said, not Evelyn this time, "if I take a job out of state, would you help me find a way to keep Thursdays on a screen for Sarah?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "Distance is a measurement, not a verdict." They walked to the elevator in a silence that was not vacant, but new. In March, a thin envelope arrived from the probate court, petition for guardianship denied. Petitioners warned frivolous filings. Carla sent a celebratory photo of a gavel sticker she kept for days like this. "Frame it," Val instructed. "Or At least stick it under the fridge magnet so it can judge your leftovers. Evelyn framed it. The months learned how to be months. She took a pottery class that stained her hands the good brown of wet earth. She joined Val at the Saturday tree planting crew and met a retired math teacher who argued with crows the way old friends argue, with affection and sound effects. She bought a second wine glass. She stored the quilts in a cedar trunk beneath her new bed and started sewing something small on Sunday evenings. 4-inch squares that didn't know yet what they would be. Sarah's Thursdays became a lighthouse in each week. They explored the library like pirates. They invented a currency of paper stars that could be exchanged for extra story pages or the right to stir a sauce. Sometimes Lucas came too. A little awkward, learning how to be the sort of father who asked questions that had no answers and didn't mind. In April, Paige asked to meet. I did things I'm not proud of, she said at a cafe that smelled like cardamom and regret. I thought having more would make the ache smaller. It didn't. I'm sorry for the paperwork that tried to make you small. Evelyn sipped her tea. She didn't offer absolution because forgiveness is not a vending machine. I hope you find a life that doesn't require other people to vanish, she said. That will be better for you. And for Sarah. Paige nodded, eyes bright. You're not what I expected. I used to be, Evelyn said. Then I surprised myself. When Paige left, the city felt newly in focus, as if someone had cleaned the glass between Evelyn and her own days. She walked home without her scarf on, letting the cool air do its honest work. That night, she wrote on a fresh page, "Exit is an escape. It's a door that opens both ways, out of something into someone." Summer took the city by the shoulders and reminded it how to be warm. Trees that had held their breath all winter exhaled. Stoops became stages again. Evelyn learned the route to the farmer's market by heart and bought tomatoes by touch. Only the ones that yielded like a good apology. She discovered that her apartment sang at exactly 7:10 p.m. when the light slid along the baseboards and made everything honest. On a Tuesday in June, Lucas called from a number that made her think of small towns. I took a job in Columbus, he said, a little out of breath. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. I'll have Sarah most weekends. Paige's firm kept her here. We're figuring it out. Figuring out is a profession, Evelyn said. It pays in peace if you do it long enough. He laughed softly. I found a therapist who specializes in sons who didn't know how to be men. That's her joke. Thursdays, we can keep them on video. Sundays, I'll drive every other week. I want to keep the card you read in mediation on my fridge. Put it next to the recipe for the sauce Sarah won't eat unless she helps stir, Evelyn said. In July, a letter arrived in a rounded child hand. Nana, we had to write about a brave person for camp. I picked you. You are not scared of papers. Also, you know how to cut the crust the right way. Love, S. Evelyn stuck it in the frame with the denied petition because both felt like documentation of reality. Val's birthday came with the kind of joyful bossiness only best friends earn. Wear your good shoes, she commanded. We're walking to the water. They ended the night on a bench facing the river, passing a small paper box of bakery cherries back and forth, spitting pits like teenagers trying not to laugh. You look taller, Val said, studying her. I stopped ducking, Evelyn answered. They sat with the comfortable silence of people who know what the other will say and want to hear it anyway. Fireflies stitched green thread through the dark. Somewhere, music practiced being music. In August, the slate-eyed buyer, whose name, Evelyn had learned, was Priya, sent a photo of the maple in full leaf. We kept your tree, the message read. It keeps us. Priya added a second photo of a child's chalk drawing on the front walk. A wobbly house with a bright yellow sun that looked like hope trying on a hat. Evelyn surprised herself by not crying. Instead, she felt a simple, trustworthy satisfaction, the kind that didn't require her to explain herself to herself. She replied with a photo of her own small balcony garden, basil defiant, mint ambitious, and a note. May your rooms be louder with laughter than with footsteps. In early September, a letter from the court arrived, this one thin and almost sheepish. Petitioners sanctioned, frivolous filings discouraged. Carla added a wry sticky note. Judge discovered adjectives. R.I.P. nonsense. Evelyn tucked the letter into the same frame as the others, a small museum of no. On a Sunday soon after, Lucas stood in Evelyn's kitchen, while Sarah measured flour with the solemnity of a chemist. "You were right," he said, "about proximity versus posture. I thought having you nearby was the same as having you. I'd been living as if love could be outsourced. It can't." Evelyn cracked an egg with one hand and felt unjustifiably proud. "You're learning a new grammar," she said. "You won't always conjugate it perfectly." He smiled, actually smiled, and not as apology. "You're mixing metaphors." "I am mixing a lot of things in this kitchen," she said, and when Sarah giggled, the sound became part of the recipe. In October, Evelyn started teaching a Saturday morning class at the community center titled Paperwork for Poets, a kind place where widowers brought yellow deeds and single mothers brought questions about leases, and everyone left with a folder and the feeling that language could be a tool instead of a weapon. She never mentioned Lucas or Paige. She didn't need to harvest drama, to sow clarity. Some evenings she walked past the old block, less to revisit than to verify. The maple out front was already freckled with red. Through the window, she sometimes saw a family she did not know sitting at a table that had once been hers, laughing in a language that required no translation. This did not hurt. It felt like a house being a house. On the anniversary of closing day, Evelyn met Val at their bench by the river. She brought 2 cupcakes and a tinier candle than the occasion deserved. "To exits and afters," Val toasted. "To doors that open because we open," Evelyn said. They sat with the certainty of people who have discovered that peace is not a lottery win, but a discipline. Across the water, a train stitched one town to another, one story to another. Evelyn thought of the boxes she had packed, the paper she had framed, the small hand that had written, "You are not scared of papers." She thought of the first apartment with the hissing radiator, and this apartment with basil that smelled like intention. She thought of her own name taped inside the door. When she got home, she wrote one last line beneath all the others. "The after is not the end. It's the room where the lights work when you flip the switch." Then she turned off the lamp, and the dark arrived exactly as expected and not at all as threat.